Welcome to The Explainer. So today we are diving into a really profound dialogue that kind of uncovers why we sabotage ourselves in relationships and, well, in life. We're going to explore these invisible forces that shape our deepest beliefs about pleasure, pain, and love itself. So let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of some really baffling human behaviors. Why do so many of us seem to get stuck in our own misery? Sometimes we even find a weird kind of comfort in it. So what we're going to do is break down the insights from this fascinating conversation between a master and his disciple. And they kick things off by looking at characters in a film, who it turns out perfectly represent two very different and often clashing ways of getting through life. Okay, so let's dive right into this by looking at two archetypes of human interaction. And I bet you've run into these before. Maybe you've even been one of them yourself. So in this film, they're talking about you've got this woman who's trying to get the man to comfort her, but she doesn't just ask. No, she does it indirectly through these hints and stories about how she's a victim. The man, though, he's totally logical. He doesn't see a game, he just sees a problem that needs fixing, which is absolutely not what she wants. And this, right here, this breaks down the manipulator's four-step playbook. First, a tragic story to get some sympathy. But then, when practical solutions are offered, the manipulator gets frustrated. Why? Because they're not getting the emotional reaction they were fishing for. And finally, they'll suggest the other person is cold or heartless for not getting it. It's a game, you see, with very specific, unspoken rules. And that's really the heart of the problem, isn't it? Her entire strategy is built on this set of rules that he doesn't even know exist. She wants him to play a specific part in her emotional drama, but he's reading from a totally different script. His is based on logic, not on mind reading. And this is where the master in the dialogue makes a really crucial point. He says the woman accuses the man of only using his brain, just analyzing everything logically, but what she's really craving is a connection from the heart. She doesn't want a solution. She wants him to feel with her, to step into her emotional world. But this whole dynamic, it's actually pointing to something much, much deeper. This isn't just about a simple miscommunication. It's about our fundamental relationship with pain itself. And this is the million-dollar question the disciple asks. If this behavior just pushes people away and creates even more suffering, why on earth do people do it? The master's answer is, well, it's both startling and incredibly profound. He argues that for some people, suffering isn't something to be fixed. It's a badge of honor. It becomes a central piece of their whole identity. There's a strange sort of pride in having a story of pain that they think makes them unique or special. And this way of thinking, it creates this really tragic cycle. A person builds their identity around their pain, and then they demand that everyone else validates it by sharing in that misery. But when people naturally say no thanks, because who wants to live in someone else's suffering, they get called heartless. So in the end, that person is left totally alone, trapped in the very pain they're so proud of. And from there, the discussion spirals out to an even bigger question. If we can get attached to pain, what does that tell us about its opposite, pleasure? Are we even seeing that clearly? The master uses this brilliant analogy. He says that chasing a honeypot of constant pleasure is a complete delusion. I mean, imagine holding a piece of candy in your mouth all day long. At first, it's great, it's sweet, but after an hour, after a whole day, that sweetness is long gone and it's replaced by the sticky, uncomfortable, even sour feeling. Right, so here's the real kicker. Our relentless chase for what we call pleasure is just fundamentally flawed. We think we're sprinting towards this amazing pot of honey, but the act of chasing it, of needing it constantly, turns it into a different kind of suffering. The thing we're after isn't what we think it is at all. Okay, so if pleasure and pain, as we think we know them, are kind of unreliable illusions, where do our powerful desires and our deep convictions actually come from? The master has a single, powerful concept that explains everything. The Vietnamese term is hong duc, and it literally means to be forged. Like a sword is forged in fire. It's this process of indoctrination, where our beliefs about good and bad, right and wrong, we don't discover them. They are molded into us by our culture, our family, our society. And to show just how powerful this forging is, the master uses a deliberately shocking analogy. He says, look, if you were raised from birth in a culture where cow dung soup was considered a sacred, delicious meal, you would believe it was delicious. You wouldn't question it. You'd see it as good, while anyone from the outside would be disgusted. Our values are that moldable. And you can see this forging process all through history. Just take ancient China, where lust was hun-duked into the public mind as the chief of all evils. For a respected scholar, it was a career ender. It was basically the cow dung soup of its day. But now, that whole view has pretty much vanished. What was once seen as a great evil has been totally redefined. And this leads to the mind-bending conclusion. Good, bad, sweet, sour, these aren't real properties of the world. They're just labels. They are definitions that we humans create and stick onto things. They only feel real to us because we've been forged to believe they are. So just how powerful is this indoctrination really? The master gives one final incredible example from history that shows how a forged story can actually become more powerful than reality itself. He brings up this guy, Zhang Fei, a super famous warrior from the classic novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms. For centuries, anyone who read that book was forged with this image of him, an ugly, brutish, uncultured brawler who was just good at fighting. But then, what did archaeologists find? The real Zhang Fei was actually a handsome, refined man and a gifted calligrapher. The image everyone knew was a complete work of fiction. But get this, here's the most amazing part. Even today, when you present people with the archaeological proof, the hard facts, many people who were hung-duked by that novel just refuse to believe it. The forged story, the fiction, feels more real to them than the actual truth. That's the incredible, world-shaping power of hangduk. And that brings us to the final thought, the big question for all of us to think about. What are our cow dung soups? What are the cherished beliefs we hold about love, success, good, and evil that we didn't discover for ourselves, but were actually forged into us? And what happens when we start to see the difference?